Welcome to Reformed Thinking. Today, we're going to dive into a story we all think we know, the Exodus, and really dig into its ultimate purpose. Why did it really happen?
So, we all know the story of the Exodus, right? It's this incredible, dramatic rescue of Israel from slavery in Egypt. You've got the plagues, the parting of the Red Sea. I mean, it's just this massive display of God's power. It's a huge part of redemptive history for sure.
But, the Bible itself kind of nudges us to look a little deeper. It wants us to ask why. Why did God act with such incredible power? And the answer, well, it's not just about freeing a bunch of people. It's actually about something way more central to who God is.
And you know what? Scripture gives us a pretty direct answer. It says God didn't act primarily for Israel's sake, but for his own. He saved them for his name's sake. Now that is a profound statement. It totally reframes the whole story, doesn't it? The main goal wasn't just saving Israel. Israel's salvation was actually the means to a much bigger goal, making God's name known throughout the earth.
Okay, so what's the big deal about God's name? Well, it all goes back to that moment at the burning bush, right? When God reveals his name to Moses, Yahweh, I am who I am. This name is, wow, it's a declaration of God's absolute self-sufficiency. It means he isn't defined by anything or anyone else. He's not constrained. He just is, period.
And that name, Yahweh, it's a declaration of absolute freedom. So when I am who I am decides to act, it means his mercy, his judgment, it all flows from his own free, self-determining will. It's not based on anything else. And this is exactly what the Apostle Paul picks up on later, right? He quotes this very passage from Exodus to show that God's grace has nothing to do with human merit or some kind of obligation he has to us.
And this is where we get a major plot twist in the story. Seriously, it's one that really challenges how we usually think about why God saves people.
So, I think most of us, if we're honest, kind of assume Israel was rescued because, well, they were the good guys, right? They were righteous, or at least, more deserving than the Egyptians. We have this picture in our heads of this faithful, oppressed people just crying out for God to save them.
But the Bible paints a very different picture. It's brutally honest, actually. It puts Israel right on the same level as their arrogant Egyptian captors. I mean, you read the confession of the Levites in Nehemiah, and they say God justly dealt with Egypt's arrogance. But then you read the Psalms, and they're quick to point out that Israel was also arrogant and rebellious. The takeaway is shocking. Neither group deserved to be saved.
And this is it's astonishing. Just look at the timing here in Psalm 106. It says, Israel rebelled at the Red Sea. Think about that. This isn't after 40 years of wandering and getting grumpy in the desert. No, this is right at the very moment of their deliverance. Pharaoh's army is closing in behind them, and that's when they rebel. And what does the text say? Yet he saved them. And why? For his name's sake. Incredible.
So by saving this rebellious, totally undeserving people, God puts something on full display. That the Exodus wasn't just a wonder of power, but a wonder of absolutely free grace. Which brings us right into our next section, glory and joy, and how they're woven together.
Okay, but this raises a really important question, doesn't it? If this whole thing was for God's name, for his reputation, does that mean it was just some kind of divine ego trip? Was God just promoting himself, maybe even at the expense of his people's own good?
Well, what the scriptures reveal here is just beautiful. It turns out God's goal and his people's good aren't competing at all. They're perfectly united. Just look at how this breaks down. Israel gets the salvation, the joy, the help, and what does God get? The reputation, the glory, the honor of being that strong helper. See, it's really two sides of the very same coin.
And this is what so brilliantly illustrates the central truth at the heart of the Exodus. God's desire to be glorified and his desire for his people to be truly satisfied, they aren't two separate things. They are woven together into one single ultimate goal.
In fact, you could even say one is the direct result of the other. Think about it. God receives glory when we, his people, find our ultimate satisfaction and joy in him. Our gladness, our joy in our gracious and mighty God, that's the echo of God's Exodus glory. Our joyful worship is literally the sound of his glory reverberating in the world.
And this whole purpose, this profound idea, it wasn't just for that one moment in history. No way. It wasn't a one-and-done kind of thing. It was meant to last, to endure, to echo down through the ages.
Yeah, the impact of this event was designed to ripple out through the generations, creating this incredible legacy of worship. You could say the Exodus just unleashed centuries of joyful, worship-filled responses in Israel. And we can see this so clearly when we fast forward a bit in history.
I mean, get this. 4 centuries later, we're talking 400 years after the Red Sea, and Israel's greatest King David is still just completely overwhelmed with gratitude. You read his prayer and it's just filled with this humble amazement, and not just for his own life, but for the mercies God showed Israel all the way back in Egypt. The fruit of that one event was still being harvested hundreds of years later.
And that right there, that's the big takeaway. The long-term goal of the Exodus was always about producing that fruit of glad worship in the hearts of his people. See, God acted to make a glorious name for himself, a name that stands for absolutely free grace, because he knew that his people's greatest, most lasting joy would be found in seeing that name, savoring that name, and gladly worshiping that name.
So what does this all mean? Well, the ultimate purpose of this ancient story has a really direct and challenging application for us right here, right now. It forces us to ask ourselves, what is the real goal of my worship? What is the true source of my deepest joy? Because if it's true that God is most glorified in us when we are most satisfied in him, well, that changes everything. It means that our pursuit of joy in God isn't just some selfish benefit. It's one of the primary ways we worship him. So that's a thought I'll leave you with. Thanks so much for joining us for this session of Reformed Thinking.